Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of I Am Legion for Dying Light. My name is Jason, the creator of I Am Legion for Dying Light 1 and 2, and today we have another update. So 1.81 just released, and 1.1H is now released of Dying Light, I Am Legion Reborn for Dying Light 2. And I wanted to go ahead and do a quick gameplay video to show off some of the latest features for Ultimate. So a lot of people have been curious and have given feedback, and I appreciate all the feedback for Ultimate. So Ultimate has continued to progress, but one of the things that has changed with some of the updates is that there have been small glitches and changes for the internal code as the mod has progressed. And so I wanted to go back and really pay attention to Ultimate and see if there was a way that we could make the biter AI a little bit more satisfying, a little bit more challenging inside the game. So with the latest version and with the custom art packs, we should now have over, should be around 1,200 new enemy biters inside the world. And to accompany those biters, those new visuals, I wanted to go through and actually update their animations as well. So they should be more fluid as you travel through the world and should be something more challenging as you're traversing the world. So let me actually go through. So with all this testing, it actually looks like this character does not have any weapons. So let me make sure to grab a couple of things and we will get going. See if we can find some around the world. So I'll talk about some of the other features while we're going, but essentially we have several new things added to the world and some rebalancing from the older versions. So it's been a little while since I've done my latest video, so I'll try to summarize a lot of new features at the same time. So screamers, volatiles should now be added to the world and more dangerous as you're going through the world. They should also be crawling through the world and actually hunting the player. So they're using noise throughout the world to be attracted to those, and they will more than likely head to the rooftops as they're traveling through the world. So be careful as you're running across these rooftops. You are more likely to encounter those as you're going. And I will go ahead and warn you. So the latest version, 1.81, it looks like their new favorite thing is they have added grabbing to these new biters. So it looks like a lot of the new biters will actually be grabbing the player often. And so I know a couple of people have reported previously. They're not huge fans of that. So just a heads up, it's not the mod. It's part of the vanilla behavior. And so I'll be continuing to wait for your guys' feedback and fixing that issue as we go. But kind of the idea here is that with these screamer icons turned off, you will now have to go through the world a little bit more wary of the enemies that are hiding around every corner. I've also disabled the actual survivor sense as well. So survivor sense for survivor and ultimate will not work. So you will actually have to go through those interior rooms without that wall hack. And so hoping that will add a little bit more difficulty to the game. You should be able to actually bring that back. So I've just recorded an install video that will also have how to restore that if that is a feature that you're looking to have back. So as you progress through the world, you should see more and more of these enemies and different unique things across the world. So it should be a little less boring and dry compared to the vanilla. So I was actually going through and doing some testing with my physics or back mod earlier today. And it's hard to believe because I've gotten so used to the different things that I Am Legion brings to the game that going back to the vanilla game just really just not for me. But I am super excited to say that with these updates, especially to the animations and the difficulty for Ultimate, this will definitely be the way that I will be playing the game. The zombies and the biters around the world have been made to be a bit more realistic to where they are kind of a manic group that will be crawling through the world as they go and will be trying to find where the player was based on noise. So as you're going through the world, so I probably shouldn't have slowed down and messed with the volatile there while I was talking, but as you're going through the world, they should be paying attention to your noise and what you're doing inside the world and trying to find behind you. So they're essentially smelling you, they're hearing you, and they should be tracking further behind you. So once they actually lock on, then you'll have more opportunities to actually be chased down by these different biters. But then also I've added an update on here to where if they were chasing you and they lose you, they actually become more manic and they scatter. So they'll actually kind of scatter out into the world and start to explore the world. And so there's a higher chance that if you actually lose that pursuit, that you'll actually end up with these biters kind of scattering all over the map. So the next time you revisit the map, they're not going to be grouped together on the ground like they were before. They're actually going to be kind of scattered all over the rooftops and buildings. And this is also meant to help add to these empty rooftops and that kind of thing. So it was kind of boring before, where you only had these guys down on the ground. Now, as they start to scatter around the world and lose track of that player, they'll actually end up scattered around the map, and you'll hopefully encounter them again next time you pass through. So as we start to play through, one of the other things that's been updated, so there is currently an internal bug that I will mention with the game. So there is currently this bug that I'm currently trying to figure out what's going on with it. That is in the base game, where the volatiles for some reason have this new behavior where once they get out into the world, they actually think that night is day. And so something in their code right now, and again, this is in the vanilla code, is actually telling them that the night is actually daytime. And so they are escaping into dark rooms. So often when you have a chase or some type of interaction, several of them, once they spawn, will actually give up chasing the player and will actually run for an interior. And due to this, you will actually have less volatiles coming after you right now because of that. And so I'm currently trying to fix that in the code to make that a little bit better and easier to curtail in the future. With these vanilla bugs, it's one of those things where you spend a long time trying to fix the vanilla bug, and then when they release the latest version of the official game, they go ahead and patch it for you. So it's always that fun little decision of, do you take the time to patch this yourself, or do you wait for them to officially patch it so you don't have to go back and undo that work you did to remove it. So continuing to look at the solution for that, I was hoping that that was an easy fix, but after looking at this latest update, I have determined that that is definitely something that does exist in the vanilla game and something that will have to be worked out over these next coming updates. So sadly, not a quick fix for sure. So as we run through the map, you can see I definitely upset the screamers. So I have tried to make these screamers and the spacing between those less often. And so that is also config based. And so you can go through and set that up to where there will be more screamers in the world if you want. But kind of the idea here is that once screamers happen, the whole map essentially changes to track you down and chase you down. And as I'm going through and updating the game to where there will be less and less UV lights that are guaranteed with those safe zones. I'm actually, as base building gets closer and closer, we'll actually have the ability to go through and create safe zones ourselves to actually add those UV lights and different things throughout the environment. And that will give you a better fallback location, but at the start of the game, it's definitely going to hurt. So kind of the idea here is that you have less screamers, and so as you're traversing the world, you should be able to make it back to those bases and travel around, but you might have to work hard for it. But the idea is that if you run into less of these screamers, then you're less likely to have to constantly keep falling back. So you should be able to go enjoy the world more and actually play the map rather than constantly falling back. And as I mentioned before, so I was playing the vanilla version earlier, and I couldn't help but notice just how many screamers are in the standard game. I kind of forgot how many screamers are in there, but it's a ton of screamers in the vanilla game. So the idea here is that we make those a little bit more unique, a little less common, have them moving throughout the world. Definitely more on the creepy side than they are, just standing around being useless. But one of my favorite things about this latest update is just how many new biters are in the world. So I've gone through, and with a lot of this latest update, I've spent a large majority of it improving and fixing the biters that I added to the diverse Z's update previously. And so the zombies that are in the world should be a lot less buggy and should have a lot more visual styles to them. And so with this update next, and one of the things I've been working towards, there will be an update to the bandits next. So the bandits will be receiving an overhaul of their visuals as well, so that we can continue to get a little bit more diversity into the world. So you can see here with Ultimate, we do have the concept of walkers and runners. So we're not just getting these constant runners, we also have walkers inside the world again, and hopefully that will also help with the amount of people that have stated, it's all biters or it's all runners. It's not all runners, but there's still a good amount of runners to make the world more challenging. But as I always record these videos, people ask like, why don't you, record these separate? I guess the idea is always to kind of show that the game is playable. You do have to take time to get used to their weaknesses and how to run the map and plan your routes. But for me, that's the kind of game style that I actually enjoy the most, is planning your routes, and that's actually what started Dying Light 1's I Am Legion mod, is the idea that you actually had to plan ahead and not just run around without a plan. And so the hope here is that you guys continue to give me feedback. I have also continued to update and improve the different diverse humans in the world. So as you start to get near the bases, so one of the things, let me talk about the humans really quick. So an update coming out here in the near future is 1.2. So the 1.2 update will be called War Zones. And not to be confused with Call of Duty's Warzone, but the War Zones update is meant to basically give the humans a fighting chance in this world and make them feel a little bit more unique. So previously, I felt like they were kind of placed in the world to be more dressing than they were any type of real contender or anything really interesting to deal with. I really just didn't get into the singular style of the humans. They didn't really feel very unique or diverse. And so what I've through and done is started to add different variations to these humans throughout the world to make the world feel a little bit more unique. And I'm always shocked at how much just a little bit of that can go a long way into making this environment more challenging, but then also more fun and more immersive to explore. You see the same zombie 1,000 times over, and it just kind of ruins the element as you walk through, that you're in an open world environment that's full of unique and interesting creatures. It kind of becomes repetitive. And so the hope here is that as we get more bandits and we get more renegade groups and actually new custom factions, that you guys will be able to actually start to feel that open world idea and concept. So I've also added children zombies to the game. So officially, with these 1,200 new zombies to the world, you do have a small percent chance to run into kids inside this world as well. So they are not very common, but they are out there. If you do not agree with or do not want this in the mod, this has been added as an optional to the installer. So you can go in there and remove them. Have made them, especially during the day, they're more likely to be indoors. And so as you're traveling around the world and you do not have the ability to use x-rays to see through walls, you are more likely to run into children. I think here's one actually now. So each one of these kids is kind of set up to where they're looking very very sad, very very dead, but they're also meant to be the varying stages of dead, and also different outfits and that kind of thing to kind of support. But the idea is that you will find them throughout the world and have to contend with the reality that they are in the world, and you might have to put them down if you're attacked or up against the wall from these hordes. So I think just in general, one of my favorite things, though, still remains just the sheer numbers that I've managed to get actually following the player and actually chasing the player. And the amount of challenge as you hang out in an area is kind of what the hope always was, is that if you're staying still for too long, you're basically stacking the odds against you that you will eventually be overwhelmed. And going into interiors, as I'm showing now, is a much more intense thing than it once was. And kind of the hope here is that as you're playing the game, you will start to use your Molotovs, your UV flares, your different tools and utilities a little bit more meaningfully to try to take on the world. And while I've got most of you, I'll go ahead and talk about the gliders. So the gliders are part of an effort similar to the hook that I am trying to go through and find ways that we can reinvent those objects in the game to be a little bit more favorable to exploration rather than just get out of jail free cards. I found that the glider was commonly reported as making the game too easy, that players were just able to find a win stream and essentially just press in my case, the Z button and quickly get away from all these zombies. That being the case, it kind of made it to where it was not quite as challenging to go out and enjoy the world and feel like you're being constantly chased or hunted by the enemy. And so because of that, it just kind of became too easy. So the hope here in what I've done is I've set up the game to where if you find gliders, so the gliders have now been added along with the custom loot throughout the world. If you're curious where the different armors are in the game, so a lot of people have asked, where are the new armors? They're actually injected into the game itself. So as you're playing the game, you will find these new armors and new weapons. And so hopefully that allows you to enjoy the game a bit more and go explore and try to find those different outfits. So along with that, you will also find different gliders. So I went ahead and the standard game, of course, as many of you know, has 3 gliders. I've now upped that to, I think the total count was 27 new gliders. That the idea is that you actually have 6 unique different types or stages of gliders, and then you have, I believe the final count was 7 unique legendary gliders, each with its own unique attributes. I have figured out how to name objects in the game and also add descriptions. So I have slowly started adding the different names and descriptions to the different objects inside the game. So I look forward to your guys' feedback there to make sure that these things are actually descriptive and actually telling you what that part or weapon actually does. But the idea behind the glider, as I'm slowly getting to, is that the glider is now a object or a armor piece that has to be worn. So it actually goes onto your back slot, which is the torso additional slot, which is also known as the bracers. And the idea behind that is that instead of always having that glider available, you have to choose between your armor and your glider. In future updates coming up here very soon, I will make penalties for wearing the different types of armor. So I have a new concept for light, medium, and heavy armor inside the game. So as we progress with this mod, you will actually start to get this concept of light armor, heavy armor, medium armor in the game. And because of that, when wearing things like heavy armor, you cannot be expected to be able to properly glide throughout the environment. And so, as I mentioned, as the mod continues to progress, right now players are mentioning, that they're not a big fan of having to add the gliders to their armor. In the future, they won't actually be able to glide at all based on certain armor types. By at all, I mean more the fact that the parachute will stop you from falling to your death, but it will not actually allow you to glide across the city and will actually cause you to plummet to the ground if you try to activate it. So a lot of fun things coming along the way. I look forward to your guys' feedback. That is a difficulty thing that I am trying to set up with the actual config itself, or the optionals. So these are things that you can kind of determine if that's your play style. Obviously, I'm not trying to force fit the solution onto everybody if that's not how you want to play the mod. I want more and more people to be able to join and enjoy the mod without having to worry about very specific details kind of turning you off to the mod itself. So I want to continue to get these optionals in and continue to get these feedback loops in. Please continue to give me your feedback, continue to let me know what you enjoy, what you don't enjoy, and I'm happy to continue to refine the game and the mod as we go. The original vision has continued to stick, and a lot of updates have been made since the first original mod. So this thing has really come a long way, and I'm super excited to continue to see where this goes. And I can only do that really with your guys' feedback. So for those of you who have not really had a chance to see the humans in here, so we'll actually go take a look at what the PK look like in the latest version. So the humans have been drastically overhauled to allow them to use different weapons. So they will actually use grenades now. They'll use decoys. They'll use UV flares. And the whole hope here is that it will give them a fighting chance. As you can see here, our PK really are still no match for the ultimate survivor zombies. Basically, they'll just get overwhelmed very quickly. And so the idea here is, as you can see, is that the PK have gone into the world and have looted a majority of the UV flare materials inside the world. And so because of that, they've actually created a large number of UV flares, which allow them to take on these zombies as they go through the world. So as they start to go through the world, they will actually use their different weapons in different ways now. They will currently use those against actual humans as well. So I'm continuing to update their core code to where they will be able to determine what a human is versus what a zombie is. That code is definitely not written in the game, so that is all custom, and so I will be continuing to refine that and update that. But along those lines, they are currently taking that concept of being able to support these guys. So you can see here from the walls, they are actually throwing down UV flares, which I absolutely love. So as these encounters are happening, they're actually supporting these guys. And at night, this is especially fun to watch. That they will have these UV flares coming down from the city walls. But kind of the idea here is that still going from the vanilla game, you know, these humans were never really meant to fight these zombies in the open world quite the way that we were hoping. And now that they are getting spawned in such large numbers, it actually becomes more and more obvious that, you know, it does take time and refinement to get this AI, you know, where we want it for a realistic open world game. And so that is just one of the caveats of what was released versus what I'm sure will be coming here in the future. I'm sure there will be lots of additional updates. But you can see throwing weapons have also been added for the NPCs. One of the problems with that currently is that the physics do not allow the weapons to travel quite how I'm hoping, and I still don't have damage values hooked up to those weapons. But they will throw those weapons as well as other grenades and other things, and because of that, they will actually eventually be able to throw their actual weapons and do damage. But some of the cool things here is we actually have female PK added to the world now. So all the factions pretty much only had men. And so I have gone through and actually updated those to where now you'll have female soldiers, female commanders for the different groups. And so as you're traveling through the world, you will have those. I will admit that the audio is not quite where I wish it was, where they do not quite carry on conversations and say things quite the way I wish they did. They're pretty much the female voices. They pretty much said these constant "I'm falling back" lines, and so I'm still looking for a way to make them have a little bit more immersive feedback or commentary as they travel the world. But the original goal here, the hope is that you would get these roving PK throughout the world, that you would get these patrol groups, and I like to think that has truly started to come into the world and happen. And so I've played several rounds now where I've really enjoyed protecting these PK and actually traveling with them through the map. So they will actually just kind of free wander and group together and hopefully get each other's backs. For some reason, there's still some glitches with their ability to detect all of the different zombies. So sometimes they'll see like a couple of the different zombies and then they won't see like one zombie until that zombie's on top of them, kind of thing, and then it killed them. Still trying to work out all the details with the sensors and everything that's happening on the back end to make that a little bit more realistic. But as we go with your feedback and as these updates keep coming, that will continue to get rounded out, and really looking forward to seeing what this looks like down the road. But as I mentioned, 1.2 will be coming out here shortly with more and more of these human interactions, along with additional fixes that I'm finding inside the code. Uh, your support is a big part of this mod. As we've gone through, we're now up to around 750 members on the Discord. That is a huge impact to my work, not in a good way. Lots of feedback, you guys jumping on there, helping each other out, and growing that community. And thank you again for all my Patreon supporters. Big shout out to Vic, who has been the longest lasting supporter on there, along with Fowler. Thank you guys so much. And then Alexander, who has also been a major contributor to the Patreon. He was the one that originally suggested it. So thank you guys so much for your support and continuing to support the mod. We are continuing to get new Patreon supporters, and I appreciate your guys' support and continued contributions to the mod. It does help make these mods happen, and the continued support. I do appreciate it, and thank you guys so much. I'm looking forward to your guys' feedback for this latest update. As you can see, Ultimate's not that bad. So if you want a new challenge, if you want to play in the game to where it's actually a little bit more interesting and random things happening, I would say try Ultimate. This is the way I like to play the game. It's very intense, really chaotic, and that just can only lead to more interesting interactions. And so I look forward to hearing more from you guys, and stay tuned for more coming up. So next updates coming up should be base building, and companions should be on the way. These companions will be very simple, but I am looking into doing things like custom inventories and that kind of thing on the actual players. And maybe even one day we could get this idea of companions that loot as well. That would be pretty exciting. That's all custom code, and so we'll have to see what we get. But I am looking forward to your guys' feedback on that, along with the base building. All right, guys, thank you so much. I look forward to hearing from you guys again here in the near future. Thank you again for playing I Am Legion Reborn, and talk to you guys next time. Happy gaming.